Hello, everyone, and welcome to Be In It in the Company of Women. My name is Charlotte Fields, and I'm Senior Director of Human Resources at Tresata. My co-monitor, Mary LaChapelle, is the Director of Growth and Partnerships for Tech Talent South. We are so delighted that you all have decided to join us as we engage all of our senses in an inspirational hour of storytelling. This is unlike any panel because it's not a panel. Mary, I love a good story. Who doesn't?
Yes, I do too. And we've been preparing to hear these stories for some time now. We should check in with our guests and make sure they're ready as well.
Absolutely. So before we dig in, we are going to stop and take 3 minutes to go and grab your favorite snack or some sort of a sweet treat that is essential and easily accessible to you, of course. Grab a beverage of your choice and whatever you need to ease into our shared time together. Now, I know when I'm watching a good movie or reading a captivating book, I like having a tasty treat nearby. I like to be cuddled up under my blanket, have me a cup of water, maybe a sip of wine. It just makes the whole experience so much better. So everyone, please pause. We're going to take 3 minutes. And while you do so, let's enjoy some sweet tunes. All right, now we were having some technical difficulties, but that's to be expected in the virtual space, right? So hopefully you enjoyed the imaginary music or you had a tune going in your head. Nonetheless, hopefully you are armed with the necessities so that we can continue the conversation. So now we are back. We have our supports. So let's officially kick things off. Really quick, some simple housekeeping. If you have a burning question, use the Ask a Question feature. There's also a chat. Use it. Talk to each other. Share your thoughts as we go along. The best part is that at the end of our time together, there will be breakout sessions for you to connect on a deeper level around a specific topic. So be sure to stick around for that.
Yes, and tonight is not really a night for your typical discussion. It's not going to be a normal panel, not your usual Q&A. It is a night of storytelling. Why storytelling? So glad you asked. Storytelling is one of the most powerful modes of learning, influencing, teaching, and inspiring. Storytelling forges connections between people and ideas while conveying values and cultures that unite us. We, as humans, can connect with a story, its characters, its humanity, and if that isn't enough, simply put, stories stick. So the common thread of our storytellers this evening is that not only are they all women, they are female leaders in tech and represent minority and or international perspectives.
Yes, and tonight, these four dynamic, inspirational rock star women are online to share their stories to give us hope, re-energize us, encourage, and uplift women of all shapes, colors, and sizes, and our men allies who are here too. So as you listen, sip, and munch, we challenge you to draw strength from the sheroes we will be hearing from this evening.
Our very first protagonist joins us all the way from NOLA, or New Orleans, Louisiana, for those who aren't locals. This powerhouse said enough was enough. The industry wasn't allowing Black tech professionals to come to the table, so she built her own table and invited everyone to bring a dish and enjoy the meal together. Founder and CEO of NOLA Vape Black is on the screen with us. Welcome, Miss Sabrina Short. Tell us who Sabrina is.
Hi, thank you, ladies, for having me. Hi, everyone out there in the virtual space. I'm Sabrina Short. I'm the founder and CEO of NOLA Vape Black, New Orleans Black Tech Collective. Our work, bringing people of color together and getting more Black people in tech. We've been here for about 3 years, and we are doing the work, holding companies accountable and making accessible or creating accessible pathways for people of color. Not only am I a New Orleanian, I'm also a mother and a culture curator known as Mother Short. I believe words have power and I speak life. I look forward to talking to you.
Excellent. Our next heroine holds a degree in storytelling 101, 102, and 103. So you are in for a treat. Described as the chief cloudification officer, maker of stuff, writer of things, explainer of doohickeys, and distributor of knowledge, we have Miss Myra Roldan. Now, this Nevada-based shero is determined to elevate the voice of the voiceless, provide access to the marginalized, and create opportunities to start a career in tech. Who exactly is Miss Myra?
Hi, Charlotte. Thank you so much. So let's see. How do I define myself? Most people just know me as, hey, it's Myra. But I am a technical program manager at Amazon. And I don't have a traditional career path that I've led. I'm actually a former nurse who made the transition into tech many years ago. I don't want to age myself, but the gray hair may already give me away. So I really have a strong passion for creating talent pipelines and giving people access and opportunity. There's a huge digital divide, and I'm really passionate about closing the digital divide and helping people gain tech skills so they can get those high-paying jobs because there's a tech gap right now. So more people of color and women in general should be filling that tech gap. And so I work with institutions across the globe to help them create programs to actually address that tech gap. So I'm really passionate about that. I'm passionate about helping people get the skills they need. And I'm originally from Puerto Rico, so I was part of that really marginalized group. Came to the States when I was 18. I'm a mom. I don't know. I tend to consider myself a friend to the world. So hi to all my friends and all my new friends.
Thanks so much, Myra. Our next raconteuse joins us from the vibrant city of Cluj, Romania. Ms. Christina Ivanchuk has made a profession of guiding and inspiring the next generation of leaders in tech. An avid problem solver, she strives to continuously evolve into the best version of herself so that she can pave the way for others to follow. Learner, puzzle solver, educator, trailblazer, tell us, who is Christina?
Hello, everyone. I am Christina. I'm dialing in from Romania, so it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning. I haven't worn makeup this hour in a year. So glad to be here. As well as Myra, I don't have like a standard career path. I used to be an accountant, then I started my journey in the tech world. I currently work as a lifecycle manager at Global App Testing. Global App Testing is a crowd testing company. My team works with the product. I lead them in the operational strategy and direction for the product that we have in the company. Now, although I do enjoy the technical side of things, the ones that I have in my team are way better than me at that. So my role is actually to guide them. And as you already said, Mary, my sole purpose is to create the next generation of leaders in tech, is to guide them and teach them how to ask the right questions, how to be there, how to be themselves, how to develop, how to cultivate a culture of continuous learning, and always how to ask why. And that why is not always important in a professional world. It's always important in a personal life. It's also asking yourself why you're doing certain things, why you want to do it. Then you go with the how and other things. So my role is to inspire people and help them in finding themselves and unleashing their potential.
Excellent. So next up from Charlotte, North Carolina, there hails a woman who was fed up with being fed up. There was a gap in meeting the STEM educational needs of the city's finest, its young girls. There was a clear need for academic support and meaningful experiences to inspire the female leaders of tomorrow. Our next heroine became the CEO of Smart Girls HQ, Miss Abby Olokeye. Who is Abby and what is she?
Thank you, everyone. So excited to be here and share my experiences and hear all of your experiences. So my story really starts on the busy streets of Lagos, Nigeria, which is a country in West Africa where I was born and learned the power of intention. I grew up watching people push against incredible odds and still remain joyous and meaningful about their life. So all of this always reminded me as I grew up of my own individual power. And that was sort of how I was raised. So when I got here in high school, which is when I migrated here, and an advisor who noticed that I was really into tech went out of her way to tell me that girls don't really like technology and presented me with a research paper so that I could read for myself and know what I'm really getting into before I decide to go to college and do this. So like a true Nigerian and in the spirit of everything that my upbringing has taught me, I doubled down and got a computer science degree and enjoyed a 13-year career leading digital transformations before I decided to really start spending my time thinking about how do we do this differently for girls like me who might have just gotten discouraged by that advisor. So I'm a proud STEMinist. I know that we can do better at helping the next generation of young girls find their own place in STEM and tech. And I'm happy to lead that change alongside many others that are doing the work.
Wow, Charla, I am inspired already. If you weren't convinced tonight would be powerful, we sure hope you are now. So, for those who are just dialing in, we want to hear from you. I already see some folks dropping comments in, but please, throughout the event, be sharing your thoughts as we hear from our storytellers. We are so honored that these leading ladies are here with us tonight. Their energy is dynamic, and I can't wait to hear their stories.
Right, Mary. I 100% agree. Dynamic women indeed. But, ladies, if we were honest, you weren't always the confident woman exuding this excellence that we're seeing on the screen right now. Could you share with us your journey and how you, being the main character of your story, came to this place that we see each of you at tonight? Such confidence, so much bold bravery. Sabrina?
Well, I have to say, I've always been that one. From a little girl, I've always been the one standing in the middle of the room with a hairbrush, singing, putting on shows, and I was the one, right? And then as I got older, people told me I was too much. I talked too much. I was too friendly. I was too outgoing, just too much. And over time, I began to kind of shrink back, right? Because of people telling me that I needed to calm down or be quiet or, you're talking too much. How many women out there who are in school and their teacher put on their report card that she talks too much? That was me. But over time, people silenced me and I began to shrink back and hold back. And that went on into my adulthood, right? Of not allowing my light to shine and shrinking back so that others can have the center stage. And then I realized that, I do have a voice and people do want to hear from me and they want me in the center with my microphone, my hairbrush, singing a song, right? They want that. And it took my entire life to get back to who I authentically and truly was. Even in my role as a founder, it took my advisors, who some of them are in the chat, hey guys, to say, Sabrina, you are the founder and CEO. Don't be afraid of that. And really stepping into that role. I remember as a community organizer, after Katrina, a lot of our work was bringing people together, inspiring them, lifting them up, motivating them, giving them hope that they could return home. And one of the directors said to me, Sabrina, you need to step into your rightful place. And I took a step back and said, okay, what does that mean? Step into your rightful place, right? Because I always let, organizers, or a lot of them were guys in our space, men in our space. And so I would let them go forward. I let them speak. I let them do all the wrangling, especially dealing with pastors who were also men, right? I would let the men lead. And then this director said, Sabrina, step into your rightful place. And it wasn't until years later that I realized and recognized that I need to let the imposter syndrome go, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't the right one, or that it was someone else, or no one cared about what I had to say, right? And then I said, you know what? I am going to step into my rightful place. I am going to lead because no one's holding me back at this point but me. And so I have to recognize that, I'm special and God made me special. And I have to stand in that and live in that authentically and proudly.
Yes. Others.
Now, how can I follow after this amazing story? Thank you, Sabrina. So my story is a bit different because if I look back, I don't think I had any level of confidence, to be fair. I come from a small town in Romania where there's actually a very popular joke that you're definitely not going to enjoy. It's like, oh, look, a human is coming. And the reply is, oh, no, it's actually a woman. So this is the level of culture, let's say, in the place I grew up. So actually, in school, little girls are encouraged to learn to be the best in their class because this is the type of schooling we encourage. Just sit quietly, do your homework, be just be quiet. This is basically what women are being told until later in life. It's that thing that if you speak up, you're just annoying, or let just talk to other women, whatever, about your stuff. So I think the level of confidence actually came like because I wanted to actually start a war. I know it's a harsh term, but it's actually starting a war because I wanted to actually women do have a lot to say. People in general have a lot to say. We don't have the right to silence them. So actually, I think it was my natural way to go against that. And I was like, no, I do have a lot of things to say. And I think those things developed like slowly in time. I think I were I was extremely lucky, to be fair. After I moved out and I moved in a bigger city here in Cluj, I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people. And because I'm a metalhead, in our, there is even in this world, in these circles, we don't have enough representation for women. It's a problem there too. So because of that, I let's say I can say I grew up because you actually grow up like a second time when we actually develop as a young woman. I grew up among men, but I was lucky to meet wonderful men. Men who supported women, men who actually told me that I need to speak up more, that I need to just not sit quietly in the corner and just wait for someone to call me out and ask for my opinion. Uh, and this actually helped me. To be fair, when I was offered my first leadership position, my first thought was like, I'm not ready for this. I shouldn't be doing this. Uh, why me? Why should I? And then I realized that exactly because I'm not ready for it, because it's not my job to know everything. It's not my job to answer all the questions. It's my job to look for the answers with the people around me and encourage them to find their answers too and help me find my answers. So actually, I realized that by taking a leadership position, I can actually help other people who were in my situation who did not dare to speak up, and regardless of the gender, because I saw this reluctancy of speaking up and not being yourself in man too. And I realized that by taking this position, I can actually make a difference. I can teach people how to be themselves and to unleash their potential. To be fair, even now, I do struggle from time to time. Like sometimes I do feel like I'm not enough. And however, even if you're a powerful woman, even if you're a powerful human being, you do struggle with this from time to time. Sometimes you feel like you're not enough. Maybe you're not a good enough wife, not a good enough mother or friend. There are a lot of things that we think we're not good enough at, but we are. This is very important to know. We are, because that's why we are friends, wives, mothers, leaders. It's our place. It's our place to be there, and it's our role to encourage other people to transition into this safe space where you can actually feel like you're enough.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sabrina and Christina. I would love to hear from Myra and Abby as well. Um, when you think about your current role as the leading lady in your story, what was the force or the why behind your forward momentum? Like, what have you held on to throughout your journey that's really propelled you?
Yeah, so I grew up in Puerto Rico, so we all know it's like the size of probably Connecticut. Um, if we were to compare it to a state. It's a very small, little secluded island. And I grew up kind of feral. So I was a feral child, right? But with that came a lot of stigma because I was raised by my grandparents who were part of the silent generation. And so children were meant to be seen and not heard. And I remember my grandfather telling me once, I had just graduated, had all these high honors, and I think it was middle school. And he said to me, women are naturally dumb. And so you are going to have to work 10 times harder than your idiot brother to get anywhere in life. And it took me a long time. I spent like my whole life proving him right, first of all, because I have had to work 10 times harder than my brother. But he wasn't saying it out of malice. He was saying it to push me, to kind of light a fire under my butt, because he knew that I would take it and I would definitely try to prove him wrong. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized that I had spent my entire adulthood proving my grandfather right, that I would have to work this hard. But I also think about all the times that he encouraged me and he pushed me to do things. And my mom has been my greatest force, who has always told me that I can, I have permission to do whatever I want to do, whatever I think I can do. And I have 3 daughters that I've tried to encourage in the same way. In fact, I think my oldest has joined us, and she just graduated with her doctorate. And so my girls are my driving force to this day. I had my daughter very young, and it was a key driver for me to really reach for larger and bigger goals, which propelled me into not giving up my my desire to join tech, right? So I was a nurse, transitioned into tech. That was really hard, but I always kept those little 2 voices in my head, I'm doing it for my daughter, I'm doing it for myself, and I'm doing it to prove my grandfather wrong, right? When in reality, I was proving him right. So that has always been kind of my driver. And, I was a teenage statistic. I had my daughter at 18. And that was a really hard struggle for me because, a lot of people felt that my kind of journey was over. And again, trying to prove people wrong. And I can tell you that I don't regret any of the decisions I've ever made. My transition into tech, I try to be the best at what I do. And I give myself permission to take risks.
For me, it's a little bit different. I found, if I'm reflecting back truly, the thing that I've held on to and the thing that I keep holding on to and is sort of my center is my own happiness. That is my anchor. And I remember when I started my career, it was great. I came out from a computer science degree. I remember as a girl that grew up in Nigeria, I was even earning more money than I could think about during my internship. So I remember 2 years into my career being so bored at what I was doing. I can't even remember what it was, thinking it would be more fun to work at McDonald's right now. I was so bored and not challenged. And in that moment, I remember thinking to myself, I have to figure out how to make sure that I'm happy at work because I spend too much time here. And from that moment, I really started to lean into the power of intention. So what kind of work would make me happy? And I started being an engineer of change on my own behalf instead of embracing change, right? So I would force myself and think, what haven't I learned? Okay, what job do I want next? And I would look around and see what jobs did people have that seemed like they would be interested. And I would literally map out, what do I need to learn so that I could qualify for that job? And then I would get to the next place. And then I got to the middle of my career where I'm starting to, be ready for leadership positions and in those positions. And then the thing that started to make me unhappy was thinking that I had to be like the guys, right? So I'm working in a very male environment. Very male, very male all the time because I was working in a manufacturing firm. And I remember the moment that is I snapped and realized I have to find my own way. Like, what is my way of leading? What is Abby's style of leadership? And I'm not a smoozer. I hate it. I would never smooze. So if I can't, can I be a leader and not smooze? Like, those were the things I was telling myself, because I had to figure out how to be happy where I'm spending hours and hours every day. And then I found my style. And then I had to be okay with how far I could go with that style, right? What am I willing to compromise? It went as far as even how I dressed. I remember I used to like shrink and wonder, I would think, can I wear this to work? Can I look like this at work? Would people think that I could be a leader if I dressed like this at work? And then I started realizing that's part of my happiness. I like colors. I'm not going to wear black because all the guys wear black, right? So it really honestly was slowly deciding that there is no reason I have to give up the steering wheel unless I want to. And holding on to that and driving my career really where I wanted to go.
I love that, Abby. Thank you so much for sharing how you overcame your hurdles of boredom and questioning yourself by committing to finding your own happiness. So when faced with challenges, what propels Christina forward?
Oh, that's a good question. I think one of the first things that actually helped me, because I did struggle a lot at some point, and especially now that I think how Sabrina mentioned the imposter syndrome and how you think that you're not enough. And I did struggle, and then I realized that the adversity doesn't come from other people or from the man around me or from the environment I work in. It came from myself, because I was taught to play against myself, to question myself at every step, and just to not speak up, just to not let emotions come through. Because this is another thing. When you work in a tech world, you're afraid to show emotion, because otherwise, how can you be a good leader? You have to be like the guys. But newsflash, guys, anger is an emotion, by the way. So it's not like only women show emotions at work. So then I realized that I don't need to be in a fighting stance all the time, because nobody's fighting me. I am fighting me. And I think this is what started to drive me forward, to identify all those issues that I was struggling with and realize that no one is at fault for them. I am at fault, because I do control. I cannot control what comes from outside, but I can control how I react to them. So this drives me forward to think about that I am the master of my own life, that even in the darkest days, because we all have dark days, I know that I need to give myself a little break, to accept the feelings that come. Just accept them and say, okay, from tomorrow, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna let myself go there again, in that dark place. I allow it today because I need to wallow maybe, and I need a safe space for myself to just let it feel, let it sink in. But tomorrow I'm gonna continue the fight, continue the war.
Wow. Well, overcoming adversity isn't easy. So before we move on, is there anything else anyone would like to share?
Yeah, so I think I'd like to add, like Christina was, she just dropped some serious wisdom on us. We do own our own destinies, right, in our own kind of life. And so I think, when we think about the adversity that we face on a daily basis, because a lot of us, we have adversity every day, right? I think the one thing that we need to really keep in mind is that, like, one, we woke up in the morning, we should be grateful for that. Two, it's a new day. And whatever adversity you're facing today may not be there tomorrow. So you got to just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and just like, keep it moving, and not create a blocker for yourself at that point, because we then become our own worst enemies. We become our own blockers, because then we don't give ourselves permission to move forward. We get stuck. And so I think for me, a lot of times is like, it's hard to face adversity, right? It's really hard when we get nervous, we get anxious, we feel that, we get this sense of like not being enough, or doing something wrong and failing. And it's just like a really horrible experience. But you just have to like breathe, meditate, no one's dying, right? Hopefully. And your life isn't over. Like, it's just a blip. It's like a stone in the road that you probably tripped over. So you gotta you probably fell down. You gotta like stand up, dust your knees off, dust your shirt off, and just like keep it going, because you can't allow yourself to get stuck. You really can't, because no one's gonna get you unstuck. You have to do it for yourself.
I'm 100% on board with that. And something Christina said that resonated with me was safe place. And I am the queen of safe places. I'm in a house with men. And so I have to find a place where I light my candle. We talked about tea in the chat. I make me a hot cup of tea, right? I put my music on. And this is before I even get to work. I'm creating, I'm shifting my own spirit. I'm shifting my own mind. I'm preparing myself for the day. So when it does come at me, I am ready for it, right? I'm strong enough for it. I journal, I read, I make sure I do something positive. That's my advice as well for everyone, is before you do anything on your task list, do something that brings you joy first, something that you like first. And you do that thing you like, that thing you love first, and then you can do all of the other stuff that you really don't want to do. But creating that safe place for you before work, during work, if you have to step away, I've stepped away. I would tell another story, but I'm not going to tell this story. But I got really upset at work with someone said something really horrible to me. Horrible and racist, and I literally just walked away. I left my purse, I left my phone, I left everything there, and I literally walked away. And I took a walk, and I came back, and I was good. But if you have to find, and I went to the chapel, there was a chapel nearby, and I literally just sat in the chapel, and I was quiet for like 30, 40 minutes. And I sat there and I collected myself. So finding your safe place at work, and then after work, coming home, and people, the sort of buzzword right now is self-care, right? And so coming home and shaking all of that work off of you, and so that you can get back to who you are and get back to the place that makes you feel whole. But yeah, that safe place is so important, because if you don't find, and it's just me, even though I'm an outgoing person, I have to pull away because of all of my energy is always being, I'm using all of my energy all the time. I talk fast, I talk loud, I walk fast, right? And so having a place that I can recover is really important.
Also, it's important to remember that in adversity, a lot of things that we encounter as women come from unspoken rules. And all our lives, we've been told since little girls that good girls follow rules. And then we realize that we can actually also create those. And it's important to remember that all the time. We don't have to obey even the unspoken rules that girls can do that, women can do that. We need to realize that we can also create different rules. And by enforcing them on ourselves first and then on others, they become the unspoken rules in the future.
That's so great. Thanks, ladies. Well, we've talked a little bit about adversity, which often has a negative connotation, but what about failure? A lot of people cringe at the word failure, but I'm not really sure why.
Yeah, Mary, I absolutely agree. In fact, I appreciate the quote that reads, "The fact of storytelling hints at a fundamental human unease, hints at human imperfection. Where there is imperfection, where there is perfection, there is no story to tell." Ben O'Green. I love that.
Right. Yeah. So let's lean into failure and embrace it. We can all agree we've had a number of failures and regrets and do-overs we'd like to make, but failure can and is one of our best teachers, and we often don't acknowledge failure as a positive when it generally positions us for the next best thing. So thinking back on your journey, excuse me, what is one of the failures you're most proud of? So share the story on how you navigated the situation and overcame the emotional, psychological, or physical hurdles to really see yourself through the experience.
Yeah, so I think I can
Myra.
start here. Yeah, definitely. So I always feel that as women, we don't give ourselves permission to fail. And that in itself is failure, right? Because we're so afraid that we're going to be judged by, the simple fact that we may fail, that we tend to be risk averse and we tend not to go for bigger things. So as I said, as I shared it initially, I had my daughter at 18. I had a 4-year scholarship to MIT that I chose her. I gave up my scholarship. And it wasn't a failure. I have no regrets around it. But where I felt that a lot of my struggles, and I had a lot of different failures and stumbles, I don't want to call them big failures, but stumbles across the road, right? It was a hard road. School was start and stop for me. Today I have 2 master's degrees, and a bachelor's degree, and I'm an ABD. So, I feel that you need to learn lessons from your failures, because that allows you to figure out, like, what are you going to do differently, right? What worked, what didn't work. And you can't spend your life regretting things. You can't spend your life beating yourself up. So many, like I said before, we get stuck. Like, we tend to get stuck in this psychology of like things that happened in our past, that it has a huge impact in our future. So like whatever you just need to let go of like what's in your past, and be able to move forward with a clean slate and allow yourself to fail, right? So I can say I fail a lot to this day. Like, I will take huge risks, and I jump in with both feet, knowing that there's a good chance that I'm gonna fail, right? And I can tell you, like, some of the failures that I've had, I've been fired from jobs for mistakes. It is what it is, right? They weren't fatal mistakes. I wasn't hurting anyone. I took risks. And so when you look at failure as taking a risk, as taking a positive risk for something that you believe in, and standing with your guns, standing behind your beliefs, you gain respect from people. And I think that's something that we all need to give ourselves permission to do. Is we need to give ourselves permission to fail, and know that if we fail, it's okay, right? Like, you may start something and may realize that it's not the right path, right? So at Amazon, we have this leadership, like this whole idea of like fail fast and fail hard, meaning that you don't want to drag your failure on forever. Like, you don't want to drag it with yourself. You want to figure out, like, this is where I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to keep it moving in a different direction. I'm going to pivot, right? So when you look at failure as not failure, but as a lesson, and being able to do that retrospective and figure out, like, where did I misstep, right? It's a misstep. And how can I use that to my advantage so I can ensure that I do things differently the next time? And so that's how I deal with it all the time. And like I said, I fail a lot. I just learned to like fail and pivot very quickly.
Myra, it's like, it's only failure if you don't keep going. Like, if you don't dust yourself off and keep going, right? And like you said, taking that lesson and learning from it and using that to do better and be greater moving forward. I love that about the line.
Yeah. I think for me, when I think back, I mean, I'm really drawn to, and I've experienced in my life, that very cliche statement that experience is the best teacher. And I think the source of that experience is typically failure. If you're counting it, is usually failure. Those are the nudges that give you the experience. And for me, my most recent lesson from on failure is that failure has purpose if you're really paying attention to the lesson it's coming to teach you in that season in your life. So when I stepped out to take the big leap to work on my business full time, one of the nudges that pushed me to go do this full time was because I had my eye on a specific kind of non-dilutive funding through the National Science Foundation called the SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research Grant. And it's such a huge process for this grant that I could not do both things well. So that was my final decision point. You're either going to commit to this or you're not, right? So I jumped out, and the whole thing takes a year, right? So in my planning, this is all supposed to happen in a year and all that fun stuff. So I left my job, which, by the way, I didn't. So here's the other thing. From an emotional standpoint, I was taking this leap and I wasn't in a miserable career. Like most people are like, oh, I left this miserable career. Like I was literally in the best possible place in my career I could be. So it really was a huge decision to make. So the next month I go to this reception in Raleigh about this program. And all I remember is walking out of that thing after a day in a fog thinking, what did I do? Like, how in the world will I ever be able to compete with the people I just sat in that room with? Because they were all PhDs and they were just so accomplished, and all the people talking on the stage about this process, it just seemed impossible. So I already felt like this huge fail, like this is not going to work out very well. So I had to, talk to myself, pull up my big girl panties, like, well, so this is what I committed to myself. You will apply. Like, I don't care how you feel, but you will apply, and they can decide where it falls, right? But you do not get you don't get a choice in whether or not you're going to put yourself out this way because you're afraid. And so I did. I worked my butt off, pulled together this impossible proposal. In itself, this was such a fate journey that by the time the proposal was complete, which was like 90 pages, all the things together, right? It's a full business plan. By the time it was completed, I felt good. Like, yes, that was like, it was kind of like a writer. It's like, that's everything, right? It's good. It's ready to go. And I just put it out there. So time goes by and they call me and then say, it was reviewed well. Okay, that's great. Like, oh my gosh, I passed the first round, and eventually got a verbal that I'm going to recommend you for this grant. And then in December of now my years are weird, 2019, because I left in 2018. I remember coming back home from a Christmas party. I've been waiting for this news, right? Because I just need to get the official thing now. And I get this very horrific standard boilerplate email that says, sorry, we declined, blah, 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 like whatever the decline thing is. And I just cried, like just bawled, like, what is happening? And this is December, right? So my whole next year is planned. You've already told me this was happening, right? It was just, I just felt like such a failure. Like, what am I doing? Where am I going? What do I need to do? And I remember it took me like 2 months to regroup. And again, another conversation with myself. It's like, well, you're here now. What are you going to do next, right? You don't get to back out because it's hard. And that's something I have to consistently tell myself is push against the hard. And keep pushing, and only push if you feel like you're banging your head. Only stop if you feel like you're banging your head against the wall. But if your effort moves it a little bit, then there's something there. Keep going. And so what that did for us, actually, which ended up being a beautiful thing, was, well, then, we're in 2020, we're in 2019 going into 2020. We ended up going to Plan B. which has now turned into a beautiful product, our Dear Smart Girl Activity Kits. We weren't going to do that first. That was not the first. That was not plan A. It became plan B. It had a wonderful launch, wonderful reception. It's exactly the way our company should grow, because it gave us a foundation outside of that grant. And now that we have it, so spoiler alert, we do have the grant. We applied again. They reached out to tell us to apply again. We applied again. We just got it in March. But it's exactly when we should have it. It has more purpose now than it would have when I thought we should have it. But that journey taught me more things than one. Your plan is not wrong because it doesn't work the first time. That's something you have to understand for yourself. But not only that, you have so much more inside of you. And you just have to keep pushing and realize that if there is failure happening, there's purpose. And what is that purpose? And don't let go until you figure it out, because you're missing a big opportunity for something amazing to happen in your life in that particular season.
That is amazing, that idea to keep pushing. As long as you have a little bit of shift, that means something's there.
If it gives, keep going. You just need a little bit more muscle.
Yes. Oh, so speaking of more muscles, it's a perfect segue. Sometimes you do need some more muscles. And we've heard a little bit from some of you on support systems, allies, this idea of champions. But let's be honest here. As much as we'd like to say that women always come through for one another, that is simply just not the case, although it should be what we expect, right? Share with us your story of having a female champion or a female adversary, perhaps. How did this particular woman impact you, for the good, for the bad, and how have those impacts lingered?
Well, from my side, it's always interesting to see that, because there's so few of us in certain spaces, certain environments, certain workplaces. I think it created that feeling of that we need to compete against each other. And also, I think this is also inoculated to us from since we're children, actually, because you're told you're valued by either if you have a husband or not, if you have children or not. You're valued by the people you have around you, and you manage to get, rather than yourself being a value of just yourself. So I've had really bad experience with women because of this, and because, truth be told, as I always said, I get along really well with men, and I think it's because of that. It's because I met some men who wanted to be vulnerable, who wanted to show weakness. They wanted to finally have a space where they can be themselves too, because we ask too much of men too. So I've had incredible experience with men on that regard. But some women were not ready to accept that we don't have to compete against each other. And when I say that, I'm not even referring to women against each other, people against each other in general. And especially if you're talking about genders or other things that differentiate us, we need to be aware of the fact that we're complementary. We bring different things to the table, and together they make a whole. So I had things, and these are things told by women. I had things told like, uh, so how will you manage to get a boyfriend because you're so aggressive by the way you talk? Can't you talk like a bit like slower and softer? I've had women telling me like, "Oh, you have a man's voice." And by the way, because of that voice, and this is really, so I used to be an accountant, and I used to close contracts by the phone with some of our customers, things like that. And people were telling me, "Okay, Christina, you need to speak a bit softer, because you're a woman, and people react better to women on the phone, right?" Which, of course, was extremely false, because people thought that I was a man on the phone, I had actually more success in closing contracts. which is mind blowing. And yeah, uh, and then I had to be fair that at some point I was thinking like, am I doing something wrong? Am I doing something wrong? Why don't I have more advocates on my side? And I think, and not like trying to put blame on anyone, I was also blaming myself, and maybe I was to blame to a certain degree because I didn't reach out, because I hit that wall. I saw that wall, I accepted it, and I took it as a wall. But actually, it had so many holes in it because those women were reacting to something they've been through, actually, and this was their way of reacting to it. And actually, maybe they needed a woman to say, I see you. You don't have to shout at me because I see you even when you speak. So I've had this bad experiences with women, but now I realize that I think I'm a bit wiser. What I've learned from it is that I felt at that point that I needed them and I was disappointed, but maybe they just needed me. And now I realize that whenever we encounter this behavior and we see that and this competition and this mean behavior and everything, that hides something. And that hides maybe something that can be hurt easily. And those people are just asking for someone to see that.
Thank you.
Wow. Who else?
Well, I'll share mine. When I opened up, I talked about the power of words, right? The power of our voice, the power of positivity, what that can do for someone. And I remember working for a nonprofit organization, very young. I had just started out. I wasn't there very long. And, I was one of very few Black people in the space. And of course, as with any new job, you're trying to figure out who's who and if you're doing the right thing. And there was a Black woman who was the director. And she was amazing. She would lead these meetings with power and authority, and she was really great. And I didn't know her that well. I just started. I hadn't been there, but I just was so amazed by, this woman in leadership in this nonprofit organization, leading these really large teams. But she resigned shortly after I arrived. And she left the organization. And I was like, oh man, I wish I could get to know her. And she was so great. She left before I got a chance to meet her. And the very next day on my voicemail, she left a voicemail that said, Sabrina, I don't know you, but I can tell that you are a star. And don't let anyone hold you back. Don't let anyone bring you down. Don't worry about the negativity. Just keep going and keep rising. You're going to be great. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the best voicemail ever. Like to be in your early 20s and be new to the job. And then the one person that you think you might have a connection with leaves. And for her to think enough of me, like, I don't know why she left. I don't know the story behind that. But, for her to think enough of me to leave this message on my voicemail. And I kept it on my voicemail for the 5 years that I was there. And whenever I was having a bad day, I would go back to that voicemail and I would listen to it. I just want to say that to the women out there that, someone needs to hear that positive word. Somebody needs to hear that encouragement. They may not say it, right? I wasn't going to say, oh, I'm so nervous and anxious about my job, right? No one's going to always say that they're having challenges or they're anxious or apprehensive. And so it just kind of takes that, somebody put in the chat, leadership, to recognize that your words do have power and someone out there needs to hear it. And I love the idea of us fixing each other's crowns, right? As ladies, if it's tilted, we can shift it and fix it for each other. We don't have to tell the world that we're fixing it, but we can fix it and make sure that we're doing great, right? And for someone else And that's my story. I'm so thankful for the women in my life who encouraged me and motivated me to be greater. And it really um, it counters the negativity, when you know that you have people in your corner.
I would even add quickly that even beyond, even if you can't have a one-on-one connection with another woman, you showing up authentically as a woman really does empower other people. I can't tell you how many women just observing the way they lead, or there's one distinct woman in my career that gave me permission to dress and wear a red lipstick because she did, and she was at a very high level in her career, and she showed up authentically every day, heels, whatever she wanted to wear, and that gave me permission to do so. So just all of us deciding to be authentically ourselves gives someone else permission to do so and be happy coming to work as themselves, even if you can't talk to them or mentor them directly.
That that actually have been reminded me of something when you mentioned red. So in the company I currently work in, I've been here for like almost 6 years. I was so nervous at the interview because I was about to be interviewed from with the interview was with someone from the UK, and I was like, okay, I've never spoken to somebody from the UK. All I know in English it was what I see on television or the American accent. And to be fair, I even told her at the end of the interview that I'm sorry, but it took me like 30 seconds to adjust to the accent, actually understand what you're saying because I'm not used to this heavy accent. And I went to the interview. I was incredibly nervous because I needed to get out of the job I was in at that point. I needed something more, something to challenge me. And I didn't need, like, it wasn't for the money or anything. I just needed a new challenge, and I needed somebody to believe in me because I had little experience, but so I was willing to develop myself to learn. And by the way, I wear contacts because I usually wear glasses, because I don't like glasses. I wear contacts. Right now, in my bathroom drawer, I have like 8 colors. Because I need to wear them, I at least make it fun. And my color range, because I usually wear black, my color range goes from blue, what I have right now, to red and black and white with black, all different colors. And at the interview, and I didn't even realize, it was just after my shift in that day in my current role. I was wearing red contacts, like completely red. And on my way to the interview, I was looking at in the mirror in the taxi, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm wearing red contacts," because this is something which is so like normal and usual to me. I didn't even realize in the morning. I was like, "Okay, I'm definitely gonna be judged, and probably I'm blowing this already just by presenting myself like that." And I went in. She like squeezed my hand and she was like, "Oh my God." And I was like, "Oh, there we go. All the questions or all the everything." And she was like, "You have such a firm handshake." So that was actually the "oh my God." And we sat down, and as I said, I needed a bit of time to adjust to the accent and everything, and then we just clicked. And at some point, I know that like years after that, we talked about it, and she was like, "I'm so grateful that you are here with us." And we were having like a very emotional moment of, "I'm so happy that you gave me a chance." And she was like, Christina, actually, I think it was the red lenses." And she said, and I was like, "Okay, this is kind of a weird reason to hire someone." And she was like, "No, it's because that show that you're bold and you want to be yourself. And it doesn't matter what other people say." And when I saw that, I realized that this is the type of person we need in the company.
Yes.
I love that.
This has been amazing. And as much as I'd love to hang out on this point forever, I am going to pivot us just a little bit because I really want to dial in and explore how that intersection of your identities, of how who you are has played a role in that journey. So as we know, women are the minority in tech, but what has been your unique experience of bias towards women in the tech industry? Do you want to kick us off, Myra?
Yeah, definitely. So, as I mentioned, I'm a former nurse, right? So I became a nurse very early. We know that nursing is the majority of nursing people in the nursing profession are female, especially back in the 80s and 90s. You know, like earlier days. There's more diversity now. But when I made the pivot into tech, I was naively unprepared for what was to come. So, you know, it was once I made that pivot into tech that I realized that 99% of the time, I was the only female on an all-male team. And that created some huge challenges for me because men in tech are used to behaving in specific ways. And, you know, I had one situation, because I pivoted into tech in my early 30s, and I had this one situation where I was working on a contract in New York, in Brooklyn, in a data center, and I was managing a large network. So I'm a former systems engineer, and so I was managing the payment and adjudication systems for the city of New York. And payment and adjudications is where people pay their fines through these kiosks before, you know, we had the interwebs and we could do everything online. And so I sat in a data center. My role was to sit in a data center with a bunch of guys, monitor all of these servers, which we had these huge server farms, like you could talk like floors of servers that were managing the system. And then I also managed the 5 boroughs, which is where all the kiosks were located. And on day one of my role, they tell me you're going to have this team. They're there to support you. You know, they're amazing. These are some great guys. They know what they're doing. You have a developer. You have, you know, you have another guy that will manage like the physical hardware. You have like all this stuff. So I walk into the data center. These guys are sitting in the data center, and they're, you know, it's early in the morning. I was running late because I had to go to the office to pick up, you know, kind of all my packet and stuff. And I walk into the data center, and I don't know if these guys are actually expecting a female, because when I walked in, the data center got extremely quiet, and all you can hear was the hum of the servers. And they all looked at me. And, you know, there's a leader in every team, someone that is the most, you know, will take that kind of lead role of like trying to set rules and stuff. I remember this one guy, he looks at me like I'm being assessed. And mind you, I am 5'3". I am not formidable in any way, shape, or form. I don't take up a lot of space. And this guy just looked at me, and I guess he was like the head honcho of this group of guys. He looked at me, he's like, oh. I was like, you know, hey guys, like I'm Myra, I'm here, like, you know, I'm the engineer that's going to be working with you guys. And he looked at me, he's like, oh, so you can sit there in the desk in the back and you can read a magazine and do your nails and whatever else that, you know, you women do.
Oh my gosh.
While we manage, you know, we'll just let you know, you can look at logs or whatever. And I remember just looking at, like, I was flabbergasted. And I remember just like in my inner voice telling me, please don't lose your shit right now, Myra, please.
Right.
Because you're going to lose your job. This is like your first day. So I just remember, I think I turned like 10 feet tall because I laid in on him. And I was like, listen, like, no, you are not here to lead. I am like your new manager. And so that is insubordination, and I'll be damned if I'm going to allow that here. And I just like laid in on him to the point where he became my biggest advocate. He would do anything for me, which was amazing, right? But it was always this, there's always this point of having to prove yourself in tech, as a woman in tech, right? Because the assumption is that, oh, she's going to bring us coffee, or she's going to organize the meeting, or she's going to, do all of these ancillary things, where they don't expect us to have the technical backbone to be able to do the work that has been mainly male dominated, right? And, I think it's in every single role that I've had, I've always had to prove myself and prove my technical kind of knowledge and my technical ability. And for those of you that know me, I have a big mouth, and I also have an inner voice that brings that big mouth down, because I also have a potty mouth, and I tend to get like really big and really boisterous, because I just, it's like amping, is like puffing your chest up, but it's because it gets exhausting to have to prove yourself. And even in this day, like we are in 2021, and I work with clients internationally, and I still have people who, I work with a team of guys. I still work with a team of guys, and we go to client sites, and my guys are not technical, but the assumption is that I am there to take notes and to do whatever support is needed for the guys. And my team is really good about saying, oh no, like Myra is the technical person in this room, and she is the one that's going to lead you. And so it's a really interesting dynamic where I think it's just like this whole having to prove yourself is exhausting, but you have to, don't let it beat you down, right? Like it's just a thing. Women make still to this day a very small percentage of like the tech population. And so because of that, we need to be on top of our game at all times. So there's no rest for the wicked, as they say, right? So I just say that we've made some strides, but there's still huge bias when it comes to women in tech, definitely.
Yeah, wow, Myra, I echo one, go girl.
Yeah.
I love that. I have a very similar experience. And I think like, as I'm listening to you, I'm realizing like, I think for all of us, we have to learn that there's a time to prove yourself, but then there's also a time to assert yourself. And you shouldn't confuse the two, right? Like you should be ready for those moments when this is a time you assert yourself, not prove yourself. And this is a time when, okay, give it some time, like do the work and let them give you your respect. So for me, I was in one particular role in my career. I was working in this area. There was this particular male character who just was really nasty to all the women that worked in that area. And I was doing tech work in that space, but the part of the business was actually had a lot of women because it was more of customer facing area of the business. So there was him, and then there was me, and then there were like several women. And in meetings, he would talk over people, he would interrupt people. I mean, I was irked on behalf of every woman in that area. I just could not stand how this guy was just literally lording it over everyone. And I think he felt like, I'm the guy here amongst his women. They're not so smart. And, I know everything, so you should listen to me. And I remember setting up a meeting with them to discuss something because we conflict all the time. And he blew me off. And so I walk over from my office to his office, and I'm like, he's in his office. I'm like, so I walked back to my office and gathered myself. I'm like, okay, Abby, what are we going to do? And then I walked right back to his office and said, tell me what your problem is with me. Very simple. That was my question to him. Help me understand what your problem is. And that totally threw me. He flipped around in his chair and was like, no, I don't have a problem. No, I was like, no, you do. Because X, Y, and Z. Clearly you have a problem. Let's talk about it. And, we weren't even playing in the same sandbox. Like I explained to him why you shouldn't even have a problem. We don't do the same things. We're not competing. And he turned it all the way around. And similar to Myra, he literally became my best friend. Like for the rest of the time I worked there, he was my work bestie. Like just because he realized, oh, so you're like, it's sad, but what happens when you assert yourself to men in those environments, it's like, oh, you're one of us. Okay, cool. We're good. Like, seriously, that is what it takes. Like, that's stupid. Why do I have to do that? Right. And so for all the other women that didn't have that conversation with him, there was still a lot of that going on. But then I was off the list. I was now, on his, so it's really, it's a really nasty culture. But I think for yourself, what you have to do for yourself is realize those moments where this person is just really being rude and condescending. I need to assert myself here, right? And reclaim my power. And the outcome doesn't even have to be that he would be your best friend. Most likely they will, because guess what? Now they're afraid of you. Is what's happening. And they don't want to be on your bad side. But that doesn't even have to be the outcome, because I was ready for him not to talk to me ever again. I just need us to have a professional relationship that works. But you have to do that for yourself, right? And in other cases, there are just situations where they truly don't understand, and they just need to see you do your magic. And it's very easy once that happens, right? And so just really being able to discern which one you're in and picking the right course of action, I think, is really important over time.
Awesome. Christina, Sabrina, any thoughts on this one?
They summed it up so well. It's hard to really follow that.
No worries. Well, hey, we're at 7:48 Eastern. We do plan to switch to our breakout sessions right at 8 p.m. Eastern, but I'd like to just give the audience a couple minutes here to ask questions. It looks like we've got a couple in our question box here. For those of y'all who are dialed in, we've got the chat running. That's great. Keep it going. But we also have an ask a question box. So please, if you have a burning question and you take the opportunity now to type that into the ask a question box, and I'll check and see what we've gotten here. All right.
While you're doing that, Mary, I wanted to tag on to what Myra was saying about, people putting you in a box and sort of deciding what your role is going to be. And I have been in that place, not necessarily in tech, but I came up through the ranks. So I started out as an administrative assistant, and then I went from being an administrative assistant to a manager, and then an account manager, then a fundraiser. I worked my way up the ranks, and it was very difficult moving from that space of being in a supportive role to being in a manager leadership role. People wanted to keep me in that place. And every time we would have a meeting, they would say, Sabrina, you can take the notes. And I'm like, no, I can't. There are a whole lot of people in this space that can take notes, including yourself. But it's really interesting when people decide, and in a lot of the spaces that I was in, I was the only Black, right? And so people have the tendency to decide on what the Black role is going to be in the space. Well, they're going to decide who you're going to be in that space. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's really easy to get put in this box of what folks want you to be and what they want you to do. And like Myra said, you have to advocate for yourself. You have to stand up for yourself. And it's really easy to not stand up for yourself sometimes because you don't want to buck the system, or you don't want to go against the grain of things, or you don't want to be seen as being aggressive or having attitude, which I've had that as well as a Black woman. Oh, she's just angry. And, you don't want to be put in that role. And so, you do have to make a decision. I think what you were saying earlier, Abby, about using that discernment. When is the time to speak up? When is the time to sit back and let it ride? And when is the time to pull somebody to the side and gather them together in a very respectful time? But yeah, thank you, ladies, for your story. I definitely can relate to that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sabrina. Our first question, actually, the one with the most votes. So notice, y'all, when you go to the Q&A, you can actually upvote a question if you also want to hear the answer, knowing we have just a couple minutes here. Let's see. We have, were you mentored by someone? How did you find your mentors?
I can chime in on this one. So, to this day, I have a mentor. So it is you're never too seasoned and too wise and too old to have a mentor. Right now, I have a sponsor. So there's a difference between a mentor and a sponsor. So for my sponsor, what he does is he advocates for me. So he ensures that I am visible to leadership and that I'm given opportunities to work on projects that I would otherwise be overlooked for. So he is about making connections for me. I have a few mentors, so you don't need one mentor, you need many. And the way you find your mentors and the way I found my mentors is to like look at people in industry and figure out who's doing what you want to do and who's had some great success that they've shared, right? And just ask. Like there's nothing more, like you don't have to pay for someone to mentor you. So right now I have 3 mentors and I have my sponsor. Because you need a support network outside of your like family and friends. My family does not understand anything of what I do. My mom is my biggest cheerleader, but that's like the extent of the support system, right? You need people that are in your same industry or that are in industries that you want to get into that are able to and willing to give you guidance and support. And in the case of a sponsor, create opportunities for you.
That's great. Any other thoughts on that question before we move on to the next? All right. Let's see. How do you stay on top of the latest technology ramp up while managing other responsibilities and stay healthy and probably sane?
I guess I can answer this again. So because I'm like directly in it every day. So working at Amazon, technology changes. Like I blink my eyes and there's something new happening. So what I do for myself is I have a learning plan that I create for myself where I take 1 day a week and I browse through any kind of information that's provided. And I find things that are standing out, anything that's coming down the pipeline where I know I'm going to have to either learn about it a little bit and figure out how to integrate it and figure out how do I help my customers integrate it into their solutions. And so, I have a full workload. Like I have this huge workload, but I ensure that a lot of what I do for myself, right, is my own personal growth. Because if I'm not growing, I become stagnant and then I get stuck. And so you never want to be stuck. So you want to be I know it's cliche, a lifelong learner. So I have, it is not cliche, but like we hear that and people are like, well, I'm a lifelong learner. And we all are, right? Like if you watch YouTube, you're a lifelong learner. If you watch TikTok, you're a lifelong learner, right? So I have a slight TikTok addiction, so I had to throw that in. But it's about looking at what's down the pipeline and you don't have to learn it all. You just need to be able to kind of like break through the noise and figure out like what's relevant. And you can do that just by reading, right? Just by reading. I do a lot of building, so I'm constantly building. But I have the space to do that because I'm in that space. But if you're not in that build space, reading, like do a lot. There's podcasts out there. Like AWS has a podcast, Microsoft has a podcast, Apple has a podcast where you can hear of all the newest things. And so then that's something you can do while you're cooking, while you're doing, taking, and it's so cliche to have to say that, right? Because we are still having to like manage our household, manage our kids, manage everything else. And we're still expected to have these careers. So it's just like, make some space for yourself. And when you feel yourself burning out, like give yourself permission to like, take a day where you don't look at any technology. So that's just my take on that.
And I think it's also important to make people realize that learning is part of the job, because we're so used to heavy workloads. We're used to putting out fires, jumping on the next urgent situation, and we forget that on the long run, the important things matter. And if you don't learn, your team doesn't learn, the people around you don't learn. You need to show them that learning is part of the job. So there's always something more to do and another task to jump on. But you need to make sure that you have this continuous learning program embedded in yourself and talk about it and make people realize that this is what it's expected of them at work. It doesn't have to be like you work for 8 hours and you go home and learn for 4 additional hours and you turn to some kind of superhero who does like three things together and multitasking, because women are multitasking heroes. And this is a habit I eventually will drop, hopefully, but I'm making steady progress, let's say, to dropping the habit of multitasking. We need to learn that we don't have to do it all at once.
I love that. That was a perfect place to put a pin in the storytelling. So, as we close out the storytelling portion of our event and simultaneously Women's History Month, we want each of you to know that every day is a woman's day. And you don't need a holiday to remind you that you are valuable and worthy of attention, consideration, respect, and so much more.
Yes, and Charlotte, honor. Holidays are all about honoring a person or persons. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't be honored every other day of the year.
Well said, Mary. And yes, so I think that is a perfect place to close this portion. For those of you who are interested in joining us, we will be moving into breakout sessions. So stay tuned. If you plan to stay online for a breakout session, we're going to drop in the chat box session topics and a meeting room link that links to that chat. Click on the link next to the topic that interests you most and join. We literally want you to join in the conversation. So for those of you who have to leave the conversation now, please know that we want to first thank our storytellers for being here, being amazing, being authentic and vulnerable. So drop in the chat a big thank you to them before you go. Now, ladies, you were phenomenal, and we are so very grateful to have had you on tonight. Thank you to all of you who dialed in. We are truly grateful for your time and hope to virtually meet you in our breakout sessions. Those links are dropped in the chat. The first one is mentor and sponsor. No, that's not it. I'm sorry. I was reading another link.
Inclusivity in the workplace. Yes. What makes you feel seen and valued in the workplace? And Charlotte, do you want to read off the last two while I drop the links in for everyone?
Yes. The next breakout session option is advice from the future you. So what advice would you want to give your younger self? We're going to be hearing from two of our speakers in that breakout session. And then finally, we have who's got your back. So this is talking about support systems, allies. We can dig into sponsorship versus mentorship, and who you turn to when you're faced with seemingly impossible situations. So hang tight. Those three links are coming your way. And FYI, these will be live interactive sessions. We want you to be cameras on. We want you to be unmuted. We want you to ask questions. So this is a space for you to engage.
All right, pasting the last one in now. Let's see. All right, all of those should have gone through. So please copy and paste the breakout room of your choice into your web browser. If you're on a mobile device, I think you should be able to download the Google Meets app for free. But we'll make sure we have a team member keeping an eye on this chat after we go off of our live event here, just in case anyone has questions and they need help connecting. But big thank you to our speakers. We appreciate y'all so much and look forward to keeping the conversation going in just a couple minutes.
Thank you all for joining us.
Bye.